good, mate. I'm glad to be back in New Zealand, and especially doing, you know, the Armageddon festival. I mean, you know, I do a lot of these conventions around the world, and it's nice to come back and do it in New Zealand. You know, sometimes you feel as though I'm the local boy, and maybe, you know, people only come here to look at the American stars and whatnot. But you know, now I've done quite a few shows that have gone kind of global, and it's interesting to sort of see, you know, even in my hometown, you know, fans come along and support. It's great, awesome. Of course, it feels a lot warmer to be supported by your own.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And it's interesting that with these kind of events, we don't get enough Kiwis, honestly.
Well, we're coming up. You know, I mean, Keisha Castle-Hughes is now, you know, sort of vamping her career with the Game of Thrones. You know, we've got Cliff Curtis, you know, playing Fear of the Walking Dead. I mean, we've got a lot of things going on. You know, there's even, you know, I'm part of Shannara now, which is sort of the latest, you know, big deal to be shot here in New Zealand. And you know, I know that Chloe Smith, one of our producers here, is bringing in other projects. And yeah, it's good, mate. There's a lot of activity going on, you know, and you know, it's always sort of dependent a little bit on the exchange rate. You know, but right now it seems to be at a pretty good level for the Americans to be interested in doing more projects over here. So, you know, it's I think Australia, you know, sort of got a lot of opportunities early on, and you know, it's sort of a scenario now where, you know, New Zealand's sort of catching up in terms of the amount of talent that we've got to put out there into the international market. You know, once you know, Hugh Jackman and Nicole Kidman sort of took off from Australia. You know, then you had the what's her name? What's her name from King Kong? Next Australian actress who got a little bit like
Naomi Watts.
Naomi Watts.
Naomi Watts.
Thank you from the peanut gallery.
We needed the female
you would
contribution
think
from the
men
side.
would be able to remember that one, though.
Because we already remember men.
We remember the gorilla. Like, that's as far as we get.
Well, yeah. You know, and I mean, then talking about the gorilla, you know, then we've got you know, Weta, and you know, Peter Jackson to always count on as being, you know, these great visionaries, you know, and you got to remember that, you know, Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, you know, one of the biggest grossing films of all time, you know, and the most expensive, was all shot here in New Zealand. So, you know, it's not like we're that little thing that we treat ourselves like. We're actually getting pretty competent at what we can achieve.
Now, speaking of that, so you have an interesting comparison. So, like, I was kind of introduced to you with the Spartacus kind of run, at which point your role was to be ridiculously intense constantly. And on all the time when you're on film. Most of the acting I thought came to really was in your face, despite the physicality of the role. When you move from something like that to like The Hobbit, where it's the motion capture kind of thing, the body is still there, but it becomes all about the face and the intensity. Was that difficult for you making that transition? Or was
well, the strange thing is that making Azog and doing motion capture was more simple in some ways, but much more complex in other ways. The more simple factor comes down to when you're filming on a set with a bunch of different factors involved, like lighting and sound and extras and you know, just trying to get the right shot, you know, in the right frame size. You know, because you're constantly changing lenses on cameras when you're on set. So all of those kind of variations are eliminated with motion capture, because basically you are isolated in a room that's basically being read like an X-ray machine by motion sensors. And so they can take that reading and they can turn it into any size they want. They can zoom into your eye, they can go out wide, or once they've captured it once, all of that's possible. Yeah. You know, so you pretty much taken like Mike TV in Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory and transported into the place where they can play with you. Yeah. You know, and it's artists that paint Azog over the top of my performance. Now it's all my performance, you know, aside from the tweaks that happen when the mask comes on, is painted on, and the body's painted on. So, you know, like for instance, when they first shot Azog, they used a 7-foot guy in a suit. But the limitations were that you know, when you come in close on prosthetics, you know, especially with the mouth, where you want a really, you know, salacious kind of mouth that moves and eyes that have real definition. I'll come back to King Kong in a second for that one. Then you know, you need to, you know, you can get better results with motion capture. I mean, once upon a time you couldn't because the details of CGI weren't as good as what you could get with mask work, but now it's gone the other way. I mean, you know, in Lord of the Rings, when it cut into, you know, Lawrence McCoy is a great actor. Deadlands proved that he's got such a huge range, but yet when he was in that orc costume in Lord of the Rings, all Lawrence could do was run to a set and go, "Arr, arr,"
which he did well.
Which he did brilliantly. Given the constraints of a suit, you can't come in close and get a whole bunch of twitching of the eye, or, you know, just the, you know, there's depth to it. Going back to King Kong, the scene where I was talking to Andy Serkis. Funny thing is, I met Andy Serkis like a year before I got the chance to play Azog. Him and I met at San Diego Comic-Con, and we had a conversation about motion capture. And I remember sitting in King Kong, and I thought, to me, the one moment of great depth in the ape performance was when he'd caught what's her name? Naomi Watts. When he caught the big moment was when he caught Naomi Watts, and she was in the cave, kind of just coming to, but it showed him, and he was sitting on a cliff edge, and he was watching a sunset or a sunrise. And he pulled a tree out of the ground next to him like a piece of celery and started chewing on it. And all that moment was about was looking at King Kong's eyes. And Peter Jackson said to me that one of the performance factors that he thought was great about Azog was that I used my eyes to give him a strength and a sense of self-awareness and pride and, you know, cunning and, you know, anger, and, you know, this is with motion capture, you get all of that, and then you get to animate around it exactly the way you want it, so you get these great subtleties. You know, I mean, I got to say that for Andy Serkis, maybe, you know, I don't want to say this out loud too much, but you know, the bodysuit that you wear is like a body stocking, right, with little balls on it, right? And so, you know, playing Gollum, I think Andy had the advantage of just being able to be in that suit and go, my precious, you know, you feel like that in that suit. But one of the difficulties for me was putting on that suit and then coming out, and everybody in that studio presuming me to be this 7-foot giant Azog. You know, but luckily for me, there was a screen up on the wall with a sort of it was mirror imaging my movements in real time. It wasn't like anything like the finished Azog effects, but it was like a very bad old 80s video game render of Azog. But I could see him moving, like it was me moving, but translated to this bad Azog. But as I moved, I could see his muscle mass, and so I'd go in there and spend about half an hour just moving, because if I moved in my natural way, then the figure up on the screen would go like, and so I actually had to envelop this muscle size, you know, and kind of, it's like asking you, and I'm not none of us are Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I'm not a big guy, for those who don't know.
But if I said to you, you need to do Arnold Schwarzenegger in CGI, then you'd have to come out and pretend as though you were going, you know, and if, you know, you feel like you're making a fool of yourself because you never get it really big and you don't have those muscles, but you do have to perform it like that in order to replicate the way that muscle mass will move. So, you know, Azog was just a really interesting character like that. Another one of the complicated things was that none of the cast was there. I never met Richard Armitage until the premieres, and he was like, hey. I was like, hey, I'm Azog, I'm the one who kills you. you know, but you know, none of that was you know. And there was another funny thing was I ran into Dino Gorman recently, and just as we were sitting talking to each other, we realised that I killed him. And you know, when I was in the motion capture studio, they were saying, oh, you know, you're going to kill one of the dwarves, Philly. You know, but I hadn't met all these guys to know all their characters and who they played or whatever. You know, I just went and did this condensed 3-day shoot. And, you know, so there's just little things like that. And when you work with an actor, there's a certain energy that you transfer that's kind of, you know, that's part of what you know as an actor, is giving and receiving. You're doing motion capture, you don't have a professional actor on the other side giving you that performance. So you have to compensate for that whilst you're riding a pommel horse that's meant to be a giant wolf.
So in
being
the
jiggled
scene
around by
where
two stunt guys.
when you're charging at someone on this simulated pommel horse and you're killing someone, are they putting someone in place, or are you just faking it and they throw the CGI in it on top of it?
Yeah, a lot of the time it's just not there.
Wow.
I mean, I was sitting on this, the first time I sat on this pommel horse, which is sort of just like the base of this chair, and I'm just sitting on this thing, and there's two guys on either side jiggling it, so I'm feeling like I'm on an animal, but you know, an animal doesn't sort of go like this, an animal's got a sort of a lilt to it, so I tried to sort of move my hips as though I was riding a horse, you know. And Peter Jackson said to me, you know, okay, there's a giant tree in front of you, and Gandalf and you know, Richard Armitage, Thorin Oakenshield, and all the dwarves are up this tree. And there's nothing in front of me. I'm in a big open sound stage. And he's saying, okay, now Thorin spotted you, and he's walking down, and you're going to have a big battle, you know, and you know, it's like there's nothing there, and I have to sort of pretend as though I'm going to face, and I put my arms up like this, and I was like, ugh. There was nothing in front of me. There was a bunch of guys on computers, sort of, you know, reading the information from the motion capture. So you've got to really sort of just lose yourself in the environment that's not there. You have to create it in your mind and just live within the moment. And that's just an interesting. It's like acting blind. It's like closing your eyes and thinking, okay, this is the world that I'm in. Imagine it around you. But if I'm live, I see you, I see the guy over there that's going, we've only got a few more minutes to do. You know what I mean? I see all that, but I've got to stay out of that and stay in the performance, yeah.